What's up, kid folk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching Adapt and Respond, thank you for joining us here. We talk college football year round. If that is something you're into, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like this video, and answer the question in the comments below. Do you believe that Shadur Sanders starting on Friday night in the Cleveland Browns preseason opener against the Carolina Panthers is a harbinger of things to come that are good for the dude that's been the most talked about fifth round draft pick quarterback I can remember for some time? Shadur Sanders has been all up and down the news cycle since being selected by the Cleveland Browns in the fifth round when they traded up to go get him. This is a guy who got a first round grade from Mel Kiper and Todd McShay and others. There were a lot of people that were very high on what it is that he could do for them as a quarterback. When Jackson Dart went to the New York Giants, traded up, go get him, a lot of us were scratching our heads asking that question of, okay, we thought this was the Shadur Sanders slot where it was going to be him, Russell Wilson, and Jameis Winston. Brian Daboll decided to go another way. And the further we got into the NFL draft, the more of a conversation formed around Shadur Sanders. You had those like myself who think the dude can absolutely positively play and has been nothing but a leader and a winner everywhere he has gone. And you have others that say he's living on his daddy's last name and they're playing daddy ball. He's not really that good. He's middling at best. I don't see it that way. However, when the prank phone call came in from an Atlanta Falcons defense coordinator's son, it kind of got blown up into an enormous story where it felt like a lot of people had dropped the ball, including IT at Atlanta. You're not even supposed to let your kid have a hold of your iPad, let alone be able to get into this thing. And he has since apologized to Sanders, but it hasn't stepped away from what the quarterback controversy is at Cleveland. Joe Flacco, who is a former Super Bowl champion, but also really, really friggin' old. Kenny Pickett, who hadn't played great football, frankly, since he left Pittsburgh, where he's throwing passes to Jordan Addison. Dillon Gabriel, who's coming off of an Oregon team that won a championship, that was number one seed going to the college football playoff, and then absolutely got destroyed by Ohio State in the quarterfinals. And then Shadur. What's interesting about this is when you drafted Dillon Gabriel in the third round, you're kind of signaling you're out of the quarterback market, at least for rookies as it stands. Apparently, they were not. Andrew Berry saw value in Shadur Sanders. He should trade up and go get. And the story has become kind of fascinating because now we know that the Jacksonville Jaguars drafted Travis Hunter with the number 2 overall pick after a trade with Cleveland Browns to get to that spot. So you could have had Travis Hunter and Shadur Sanders for little to nothing. Frankly, I think you could have gone and got Shadur anytime you wanted, didn't have to trade up to go get him. And he probably would have been there in the 6th or 7th round. Not like Quinn Ewers was there in the 7th round for the Miami Dolphins. He's turning heads. But since then, we've heard good reports. We've heard bad reports. We've heard Shadur Sanders has thrown more TDs in practice than any of the other quarterbacks. Now, could be the competition he's facing. Could be the quality of the offense he's playing on. We don't really know. It's practice. Then he's 4th on the depth chart behind Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dillon Gabriel. And then earlier this week, Tyler Huntley, Snoop, was signed on to the Cleveland Browns because they've come into a spat of injuries with the Browns. Dillon Gabriel's got a hamstring problem. Kenny Pickett's got a hamstring problem. Doesn't feel like they want Joe Flacco to go out there throwing passes because, well, he's probably your penciled in week 1 starter. And you're trying to figure out what it looks like behind him and what your future is going to look like. Another reason you bring in Tyler Huntley is so you don't have to play Shadur Sanders the entire game. But to give him the start, I think is indicative of the 2 guys in front of him being hurt because the depth chart is the depth chart. But this is an opportunity. Let's not be coy about that, right? If he shows out against Jimmy Horn and the Carolina Panthers, if he outplays anybody else on that offense, you can understand, you come around to that dude's got it. And that's what we wanted. That's what he's wanted. An opportunity to show that he can play this game at the highest level and that he can do it at a franchise that, frankly, hasn't had a decent quarterback since Bernie Kosar. And I don't even know that we get to count Bernie Kosar as a decent quarterback. We just get to count him as a quarterback that was on a winning Cleveland Browns football team. The number of quarterbacks and the quality of quarterbacks that this franchise has spat out is quite honestly astounding. Johnny Manziel, Robert Griffin III, Baker Mayfield. Those are just the 3 Heisman winners. They've had 3 Heisman winners show up to Cleveland Nothing gets done. They trade to go get Deshaun Watson. They sign him to this ridiculous deal. And then his off the field behavior leads you to a place where he's unplayable for you. Not unlike Larry Johnson Jr. at the Kansas City Chiefs when he's going for the rushing record. They didn't want him to have it. That's how little they like Larry Johnson over there. You really do have to be the guy that people can rally around. That was the cool thing about Baker. Not necessarily about Johnny Manziel. And I think most people wanted Robert Griffin III experience to work out. But you go up and down the list of guys that have started games for them as quarterback, and you got to wonder if that is the place where quarterbacks go to die. I realize that we're going to make fun of the Chicago Bears for not having a 4,000-yard passer, but I look at that the same way I look at Georgia, and I have a 1,000-yard wide receiver other than Terrence Edwards in a single season, and the way in which Georgia hadn't had a 1,000-yard rusher since 2019. Doesn't stop them from being good. DeAndre Swift was good. Did he win a national championship? No. And it turns out you didn't need all of that, right? So Caleb Williams and his daddy, I think, kind of blowing it out, but it's another franchise that just hasn't had great luck with their quarterbacks. I think that this is a great spot for Shadur Sanders. I think with Jerry Jeudy having something to prove, I think with the running back room being what it is, I think the way in which he's able to ingratiate himself and the way in which he's able to manage the pressure, that part has gone really not talked about enough for me. He has been nothing but a great leader and spokesperson for himself and everybody that he represents. Now, he keeps a notepad, not unlike Baker Mayfield. He's chippy. But with Baker, the cockiness was winning people over. With Shedeur, for whatever reason, it's getting under people's skin. And I get it. One guy's the first overall pick, and another guy happened to be Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year and throwing passes to the Heisman Trophy winner. But I also think this is going to be an opportunity for us to see what it's like for him to have something like a pretty decent offensive line and rushing attack. Last year, Colorado finished dead last in rushing yards per game. So another way of saying, when they rush for an average of 1 yard per carry, they won the football game. Okay? If the offense didn't throw the ball, it did not move the ball, which meant that everything was on Shedeur to throw it to Travis Hunter, Carolina Panthers Jimmy Horn, to Will Shepard, to LaJohntay Wester. You needed a guy that could stand back there knowing you wasn't going to get any help from the run game and still make it happen, and that's what they did. They won 9 games doing it that way, and they finished atop the Big 12 standings, just missing out on playing in the Big 12 championship, for which we got to see Arizona State clobber Iowa State. And then in the Alamo Bowl, BYU did what they've been doing all year, and they won 11 games last year. That was a good football team. People want to act like Colorado was such a big favorite in that. Not if you've been watching BYU's defense play. It was outstanding, and they showed up in a big way against otherwise potent offense in Colorado. Now, Kevin Stefanski's going to, I think, draw up a playbook that works for the guy wearing 12. And I can't wait to see what that looks like. We'll probably have something to say about it on Friday night. Also want to take this opportunity to remind you that, hey, look, the show's getting some changes. If you watch the 6 p.m. Central show, you're going to have a good time. I have a good time. Some good news in there. Just as I'm sure there's some good news at Sanders' house, is my man is going to get an opportunity to show on national television just what he is made of. Get in the kitchen. Go cook, chef. You got it.